brought to you by the Equine Initiative, presented by Piranha, the Horse Talk Show, and Larson Hay. Louisa Barton here for the Horse Talk Show and Equus Television with my co-host and friend, Dancing Pete Roda. And we have an incredible honor of talking to one of the finest horsemen in the world, and that is Chris Cox. Chris was actually born in Kissimmee, Florida, but was soon moved off to an island in Australia, right?
Australia, yes ma'am.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
I know you've had a busy day with a clinic here in Lady Lake, and getting to watch some of that, and you chatting to some of the participants was great. It was fantastic to see you in action, and great to have you back in Florida.
Thanks. I tell you what, the weather is unbelievable. I know they said it was cold last week, but yeah, it's been in the single digits where I'm from.
Yeah.
So. This is pretty special. So.
Pretty special, yeah. So I read something that I loved, and that was that as a kid, you were homeschooled very young, and then in second grade, you actually rode horses to catch a boat to school. Tell us about that. I love those kind of stories.
We did, yeah. My dad, bless his heart, he was kind of a pioneer, and he went over there and took his family, and we settled on this island and ran cattle on it. And so the boat we went up on there on, he made as a school boat, and 3 miles away was an island called Thursday Island, which is at the top of Australia, below New Guinea. And Thursday Island wasn't a very big island, but it had a big harbor on it, and it had a hospital, and it had a school. And so we'd take that boat over, and some of the island kids that lived on our island, Prince of Wales Island, would jump on the boat and go with us. So we ran that for years, and I hear it's still running today. So yeah,
really?
Yeah, after 50-something years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So you grew up around horses and cattle?
Did, yes. Yeah, I didn't really have a choice, and I didn't realize how important it was until I left home. You know, it's kind of like you don't know what you got until you leave it, kind of thing. You know, and I didn't think I'd make a living with horses because, you know, everybody rode their own horses. You trained your own horse. That was just kind of a lifestyle. You shod your own horse. And then coming over here, a lot of people do it as a pleasure, as a hobby, as something that they do on the side. And folks get into it late in life. And you know yourself, when you get into something late in life, you don't have the knowledge or the skills unless you grew up with it.
Right.
And it's such a passion that we want to share, and I know you do the same thing, Pete, is you teach people, you know, the basics of how to communicate to a horse, the leadership qualities of it, the feel, the timing, everything goes along with it, and it changes people's lives. It's a documented fact that you can go to as many psychologists, you know, whether you're an Army veteran or anybody, and the horse will change your life more than anybody if you listen to them, because it shows a mirror of ourselves, and we have to change ourselves. As a human, we start looking at other things. Who can I blame? You know, it's just a blame game, right? You did this, you did that, oh, they did that. Well, with a horse, you got to say, hey, it's me. I've got to change for my horse to be better.
Gosh, you are so spot on. We just spent some time with my Mustang, and we were just talking about mirror, about that very thing with him and how we do that, you know, and you're right, the blame game is everybody's favorite thing to do, right? But what are you doing that's affecting your horse? And the leadership, let's talk about leadership, because actually we were talking about that this morning, how important that is. And something that we've been really focused on lately with the show is making a horse feel safe, and how that's so important.
You know, to me, I've quit teaching giving. I'm teaching relaxing. A lot of horses can give but not relax. The relax is a piece. And the relax is where their mind goes, and then their body follows. There's a lot of people that get their body to go, but their mind is not with their body, which means they don't want to be there, right?
Right.
It's kind of like a lot of folks, a lot of people, millions of people today go to work and don't want to be there. And it's sad, right?
You don't have that problem.
I don't have that problem. There's some places I go to that's awful tough, but you know, I want to have a partnership. I want it to be, and I'm willing to work harder than most people because it's a passion. And I say to folks all the time that are trying to find out what their future in life is, or their direction in life with these kids. They go and they change their major so many times they don't know what they want to do. It's pretty simple. What do you love to do? What is your passion?
Yes, sir.
If it's your passion, you'll work harder than anybody else. When you work harder than anybody else, you become one of the best. And when you become one of the best, money comes.
Ooh, you're so spot on
But
there
if
too.
you go after money,
Yes.
you'll never be happy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful.
That's really true.
So one of the things that when I first met you at Road to the Horse, you were a class act.
Thank you.
And I was passionate of watching you because you it wasn't about the other competitors, it was about you and that horse. So talk a little bit about how, because we talked a little earlier about different clinicians and all this, and you said some powerful words about it, which helps me because it takes an ego to get yourself out there into an arena, but it also, you have to be careful with it. So tell us a little about how you view other clinicians and things like that.
Well, I'm not going to tell you how I view other clinicians because that's not my purpose, right? It's not my purpose in telling you whether I like this person or I don't like this person. But I will tell you there's a lot of great people out there. And I don't teach the way they teach necessarily. I've learned, and I've done a lot of things wrong, but what's changed my life is I quit training horses. I started training myself.
That is
When I
so-
started training myself, things became better. I started becoming more humble. I started realizing that things were me, and I quit calling myself a professional or an expert because I'm not a professional. I'm not an expert. I'm not a master horseman. A master horseman has mastered it. I've never mastered horsemanship. I'm continually learning, and I continually pick up things from horses, from people, and that's what helps me grow in my horsemanship, grow. And I tell people that I'm always a student of the horse. I'm not a professional. And what that does for me, Pete, it keeps my door open for information. And once you start confessing to others that you're the best, or you're the best at what you do, or you're a professional, or you're a master,
Or you're the only one who knows.
You're the only one that knows, and you invented this. You start closing the door, and the ego starts coming inside, and you start believing that everything you do is the best. It's not. There's so many ways to communicate to a horse. There's so many ways to skin a cat, and I leave my options open. And the more I've been humbled, the more I learn. And so that's what's changed my life. And I continually learning. I continually grow. I compete in a lot of different things. I look at a lot of different things. There's some things that I don't like out there that I see, but I evaluate them in my mind. And if there's something I can pick up out of it that I'll never want to do or I never want to see, I add it to my inventory. But I think that there's so many people become almost in a cult-like nature that they don't open themselves up to what's going on.
I agree. I think that you can learn a lot of different things from a lot of different people. You can maybe come up with your own idea, as Pete has, your own routine that you do, which is great, and you can own it. But I think you can learn so much from each person just by listening. I mean, just the amount of time I spent today listening to you, I picked up on a lot of things that I've heard before, and then some new things, and watched everybody interacting. And you can learn. You can learn in listening to as many knowledgeable people as possible. I think it's is wonderful. You might find one you love the most and follow the most, which is great. But if you don't listen to all of them, how are you going to find out who you like anyway? So
Yeah.
I think it's a great way to learn.
And once again, class act dancer. I mean,
Oh, thank you. I tell you, I'm far from a class act, but I'm trying to be better. The thing about it is with the ego, people don't realize is the horse suffers. The horse suffers. And not just people, but the horse does, right? So, and I have learned a lot from people disciplining me at clinics. I've listened to them. I listened to their complaints. I've listened to their needs. Now, all of them probably wasn't right, but I listened to them. I listen to horses, and I digest and I take away what I can to make it better. And so that's why I think I've become a better teacher, is that, you know what, it may not all be right, but I'm going to listen, and I'm going to take something away from it.
Did you always think you were going to do this, or did you think you were going to do something else when you left school?
I didn't think I was going to be a clinician. I was going to be a world champion bull rider. But I had a really bad accident and almost lost my arm, and
Oh my gosh.
as when I was 16 years old. But I rode horses. But here's the thing: come over here. I trained horses, but then they took them home, and they screwed them up, and then they brought them back to me, and I said, one day, I'm going to own all of my own horses. So that's how I started doing clinics. Now, I was around people when I was real young that did clinics. I was fortunate enough to be around a great horseman called Ken May that we lost last year in Australia. And I was around a few people, and so I had some mentorship that I give credit to for that, and for teachers, you know. And so that inspired me to do more. Yeah. And, you know, the older you get, I tell you, I help enough people get what they want. I have everything I want. I love people getting results and achieving their dreams. And now it's my kids and my family.
I was going to ask you that now.
Yeah.
I saw your kids out there. We're doing such a great job. I saw your son on a horse and your daughter out there dancing, having a good time.
You know, and I tell people they're learning here. I'm not micromanaging them at home, because the one thing that people do with kids is they give them too much instruction. They won't show up at the barn. Too much. It's not fun. I've let them have fun. I let them rope. I let them work cattle. I let them barrel race. I let them. Now they're 14, 15 years old. Now they're starting to want to know the more details. And that's where it's fun. So today was fun.
And they picked up details by watching you and mimicking you that they don't realize. Because I see kids that grew up with my mentors that are like, how are you doing that?
But it's easy to burn them out.
Oh, yes. Sir.
You know, like giving a colt too much information too quick. Mm-hmm. It's easy to burn them out. And it's not about how young, it's about how they're ready to accept it, you know. So.
Now, there's something that I've been around horses since before I could walk, and grew up in England and rode some crazy ponies that I wish I had known the things I know now. Then it would have been a whole different, I think I would have hit the ground a lot less. But it really been talking a lot and thinking a lot about energy, and you mentioned it today during this clinic, and it this morning, I think my experience with my Mustang actually even brought that more home to me than ever. Is the energy between you and your horse is just, it's a huge piece of the puzzle.
Well, I believe that's where healing comes in, right?
Exactly.
With our veterans, with our handicap.
Yes.
That's where healing comes in, because these horses feel that. They pick up on it. And the thing about it is, what people don't realize is the horses have been around for thousands of years, and they read body language. So they communicate through body language, not through sound. Now, they'll make some sounds, but it's through body language. And if you ever see a group together, it's all body language. And so they read the human so well. And we as a human actually rely off voice more than we do body language. But if you're around people, you read people and you watch them, you watch their mannerisms. And it's the same way with a horse. A horse is always watching us. And that's how they've survived, right?
Yes, sir.
You know, they're so good at it. Mm-hmm. And we don't take that serious enough.
I know, you're absolutely right about that. And you were talking about like barn sour or buddy sour horses, you know, and how if you're not the leader, they're looking for another herd member to glue themselves to, so they feel safe. And that makes so much sense. I mean, these things that almost seem like common sense when I say them, but sometimes you got to hear them and experience them to know how important they really are.
Well, that's right. You know, when people have a misunderstanding for leadership to be forceful, no, leadership is knowledge. Leadership is confidence. Mm-hmm. That's what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Right, so. Well, you know, you say that, and for the first time in my life, for the last 7.5 years, I have worked for a team at the chamber where we are not micromanaged. We are given a plan of work, and most of us do more than our plan of work. Most of us do extra. But we aren't micromanaged, and we're actually trusted to get it done, and we all get it done plus because but he hires people that he trusts and believes in to do the job. So
he allows you to do your job.
Yes, he does.
Yes.
And we do it well because we even do things sometimes that aren't in our plan of work that help our plan of work because we want to, because we work for somebody who gives us enough rein to either hang
creative.
ourselves or
Yeah,
be
sure.
incredible, one or the other, you know. And if you hang yourself, obviously, then you're done with the job, right? So, but we don't. We all work
It's
harder
pretty
for
well
him.
said. I think that,
Yes.
yeah.
And I work harder for him. I've always worked hard all my life, but I work harder for him than I've ever worked for anybody else, because I so appreciate the fact that he gives me room to grow, room to be creative, room to come up with ideas that are things that I think we should do.
Let's stop there. Let's turn you into the horse and your boss into the human. That's my goal. For that horse wants to work hard for me, wants to please me. Okay, so that's the whole relationship that we set up. That we want their mind. We want them to be relaxed. We want them to be proud of you. We want them to come up and say, "Great job," and you're working for that, right? But he allows you to make mistakes. See, he doesn't tell you what to do. He allows you to do it, and then he helps you if you need it, to guide you along. So that's pretty special.
I love that, and I think that's so important.
Yep.
So what would you give to someone like me or someone coming up in the industry that will have the passion to go out there and teach? What would be something you would tell them to help them on their way, to help these horses get more relaxed and these people get more connected?
Well, one of the things is, I think you brought up a good point, Pete, is that I still work on my horsemanship, and I work on it and I work on it. But the toughest has been becoming a good teacher. And I still work on that. And I've really concentrated it on the last 10 years. The last 5 especially. The people that have gone to my clinics for 20, 30 years, they've seen a big change in me and my communication. It needed to be done. What happens was I was trying harder than them and I was pushing them too hard. You can't do that. And so what I do is I incentivize them to get them to try and reward them. And I set it up for it to be easier for them. Be simple for them to understand. I realize that a lot of people don't learn the same way, and that's what we got wrong in our school systems today, is that one teacher teaches the same way. Well, that one teacher only communicates to probably 15% to 20% of that classroom that they get it. So what I've learned to do with a horse and the human, when I'm teaching something, I will teach it one way, then I will turn it at a different angle and talk about it from this angle. A lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I get that." And then I'll demonstrate it. And then I'll talk about it, and I'll ask them questions, then I'll demonstrate it another way. So I've learned to be able to take this subject and turn it around a little bit and not just go at it directly, because we all learn differently. We all have this ADD, dyslexic, this all kinds of crazy stuff.
On the spectrum stuff, yes.
You know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
we don't, but the geniuses, the ones that are genius, sometimes need to tank. My son has one of the greatest memories of anybody been around. He's dyslexic. He's the smartest kid I've ever known for thinking about stuff. So he needs to be going at a different angle. I've realized that horses and people are the same.
Oh, yes.
You've got to twist that a little bit and talk about it from a different angle. If you have a certain message, drill, 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 you're only going to get a few people. You're only going to get a few horses.
Yeah,
But
you're
if you
so
want
right.
everybody, you've got to be able to change your message a little bit.
Yeah, I saw Pete do his blocks with his horse, and rather I tried to do Pete's blocks with his horse, and I don't think I learned anything. I watched him do his blocks with my horse. That's how I learn. I got to watch it.
Sure.
If I do it, I'm way too ADHD to learn and do it myself. So, yeah.
Well, I'm a big believer. First of all, it's got to make sense.
Yes.
You got to understand it. And
Yes.
if it doesn't make sense, you can't understand it, you can't see it, you can't do it. If it makes sense, you understand it, it has a purpose behind it, right? There's a purpose why we're doing this. So when we go to do it, we're not like, I don't know if I'm screwing my horse up. I don't know if those people are that way in and out. They don't know because they don't understand why. Once you understand why, you have a purpose. You might get it wrong, but at least you're going to keep going and you'll get it better and better and better. I'm still working on getting things better, even at the beginning stuff. Getting it better, refining it, right?
Right.
A lot of people have a misunderstanding about the first steps, the basics. The basics can go a long way. The basics aren't basic. The basics are the first few steps, but sometimes always need to get back and strengthen and refined.
Yes.
And I tell people all the time, communication with a horse is when I'm working with a horse, there is a rope, a thread that goes to the next step. It's got to have a connection to the same idea for it to get to the next step. So it relates that same idea to connect to the next step to advance it. If you have this thread and it's weak, or you've jumped a few steps without the thread, you might go a few, but you will fall. You need to keep weaving that thread and connecting it with the previous idea. So some familiarities start kicking in there to that horse to where they follow that familiarity of this. Even though you're advancing, it's all familiar, and your just expectations are just growing about the familiarity of the step previously.
Wow.
Yeah, that makes total
can get a little
sense.
bit
All I know is these the last couple of interviews, which we won't call interviews. It would be more, what do we call it?
A chat.
Chat with
Nice
Chris
chat,
Cox.
yeah.
This is way
A
better.
chat with Chris Cox.
This
That's
is
it.
way better than being in the studio.
I know. It is. It's just
'Cause
nice
this is
to
real.
just- I know. It is. It is.
Well, I get excited, and it's fun to talk about trying to get better, you know, and seeing people's lives change and horses change, and yeah, I change with them, you know. So
We see some amazing things in a day-to-day with recent equine education memorandum of understanding we have with the school board now that we're actually taking horses to schools to visit kids. We have a wonderful group, a
Good for you.
501c3 we work with called Gentle Carousel Miniature Therapy Horses, who read a book to the kids. It's a horse book, it's their book. And then the character in the book steps out of the horse trailer and the kids get to meet the horse.
that is so cool.
And one of their horses is actually the only living top 10 most heroic animal in the history of the world, Magic, who's also a Briar collectible horse. And she visits schools. She's also an official Ocala Police Department officer now as well. And so she goes to schools with the officers so that the kids learn officers are not a negative. You know,
Yep.
the police are a good
Sure.
thing. But we have seen things. We have seen children who never speak and
Yeah.
ask questions.
Amazing.
We've seen a couple teachers even crying because these kids are talking for the first time or hardly ever talk at all and suddenly want to talk because they see a horse. And we're having amazing experiences with things like that. So I think that the horse has a very, very special spiritual tie in healing for humans, whether it, like you mentioned, veterans, disabled. You know, the great Cody's Wish story was amazing, his connection with Cody Dorman at the racetrack. All these wonderful things that we see that horses do, and I think if we can have a really, really good relationship with our horse and have that connection, that can be lifelong, and it can turn a horse that maybe wasn't going to necessarily be great at anything into a great horse just because it has that tie to
Yeah.
a human, and because it's, you know, my Mustang was on his third strike, $25, nobody wanted him with his big Roman nose, but
Yeah.
I fell in love.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have a connection with him now that's so strong
Sure.
right from the beginning. And
Well, I tell you what you're doing with that program is amazing, and I commend you. We have a 501c as well, and help take children out of trouble situations, and even just out of general homes and inner cities, and help change their lives through the horse. And people ask me, somebody will ask me, "What's your goal in life? What's your purpose?" My purpose is to help change the world through the horse, and that's what you're doing.
so when you get ready to retire eventually, you know, and you come back and live in Ocala, we'll be all set up ready with the vocational school and we'll need you.
There you go. There you go. I've always been taught to never retire, so.
Well, then you wouldn't be, you see, because
when I
we'd be putting you
retired,
to work.
yeah, you know why they build retirement homes for, nursing homes for quitters. I can't.
We're not doing that,
I
are we?
never
No.
understand when people say they're going to retire.
No.
I'm like, aren't you bored?
No,
That's right. But it's a wonderful program. We're really excited about it. It's a recent in the past year, and we're really excited about what's happening. Getting to see kids, you know, out of 400 kids, maybe 3 raise their hands have ever touched a horse before we come to the
that's
school,
amazing.
which is sad.
And what a great way of promoting the equine, you know, going to the schools, and that's
We love
that's
it.
amazing.
We're really passionate about it.
Yeah.
We're creating a colouring book with equine industry jobs for
Mm-hmm.
elementary age, and a middle school pamphlet with lots of 101 information,
Sure.
you know, and references where they can find more. And
Yep.
so we're excited about that. So the passion for the horse and just getting a chance to see young people who aren't around horses be around them, it's a game changer.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It really is. An amazing connection for people
Mm-hmm.
and horses. It's nothing quite like it.
Good. That's awesome.
Any like last things you'd like to tell our viewers? Kind of any,
You know what,
especially like Pete said, someone coming up trying to do what you've done so successfully.
I get asked this question quite a bit about how do I get started. And very few people think that they've got to have money. You don't have to have money. Find somebody you think's one of the best, show up at their door, don't leave. Go to the barn. Don't expect to get paid. Go to the barn, sweep the barn, clean the stalls. They'll eventually put you on a horse. Then you work your hard, they'll eventually teach you.
That's true.
If you have the drive, unfortunately, if you don't have a work ethic, this is not for you.
That's true.
This is a work ethic. This is, if you expect to get paid by the hour, this is not for you.
I see a lot of horse people that haven't had that experience, and they don't understand it when they go to other places.
This is a lifestyle, right? Like animals are a lifestyle. There's no o'clock. There's no, you got to get up in the middle of the night sometimes and help a sick horse or help a calf be born or whatever. It's a lifestyle. And what happens is that, as I said, you work hard and you become one of the best and you learn from one of the best, money will come. You will be rewarded.
That's right.
And I don't have anything against going to college, but I see a lot of people going to college and getting in debt for 6 years or 5 years or 3 years, getting out and still don't know what they want to do. So it could be a college. And I interview a lot of people with 4 and 5 different degrees looking for a job, just cleaning stalls or working horses, just want to be around horses because they realize the direction they were going is not making them happy. Find something that makes you happy and work your butt off. Be the first one to the barn, be the first one there. Work ethic will impress anybody. I don't care how much ability you got. If you've got a work ethic and stability, which means that you are consistent. You show up and don't just show up for 2 weeks and leave and think you got it figured out. I don't take interns anymore. You know why? Because most of them are only with you a couple of years and think they got it figured out and they leave. Just when they're starting to benefit you. You've taught them, so I don't. But if I help people for free if they show up and want to work their butts off, you know? And that's what I would say. Yeah.
Yes.
I could have quit. I lived in a truck, so I could have quit, but I never quit. And the law of average, if you don't quit, you'll be successful.
That's right.
You know?
And when you're passionate
Inspiration.
about something,
Yeah.
it's what you want to do.
Exactly.
And they always say, you don't work a day in your life if you love what you do. So.
Well, that's right.
A bad day with a horse is way better than a good day at the corporate America.
That's exactly right.
That's a true fact. Chris
exactly
Cox,
it.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time after your clinic today to chat to us. It's really an honor and a pleasure.
Thank
Lovely
you.
to see you again, and we're happy to have you back here in the horse capital, or close anyway. So
Oh, thank you. Thanks. An honor to be on here.
we hope we'll see a lot more of you.
You bet. Thanks.
Louisa Barton and Dancing Pete Rhoda here with Chris Cox for the Horse Talk Show and Equus Television.